Welcome to the Life Given Podcast, your midweek sprint edition, where we just put a whole lot of current events out on the table and we rip through it really quick. Okay. I'm your host, Isaac Lopez. Glad and thankful that you are joining me here on the show on the midweek edition. We've got a lot to get to, but before we get to that, before we jump into looking at what we have for today, I just want to say happy May. The summer is officially here. Lockdowns are starting to go down across, or go up rather. They're starting to lift the ban around the United States, and that's something worth celebrating. And one of the things that I want to bring up here in the introduction is the theme from today, first show here in May until August. It will be our summer of Take Back Current Events. It's our Take Back Current Events summer, just taking back the responsibility of what should be under the lordship of Christ. And we'll get into that later and explaining it, but just putting a pin in this right now, that's the theme of our summer, taking back current events. So let's get to the show. For today, we have a number of things we're getting to. On the international level, what's cooking out in the world, we're going to be considering, are shutdowns completely pointless? There is an Israeli doctor that came out with a very intriguing article, and Elon Musk sounds off. We're looking now at the national level, and we're looking at what the NCAA is doing to enable men to beat out women in women's sports. That's in our national segment. And then in our third and final segment, we are looking at what's happening close to home. And for the majority of my listeners, it is Moscow, Idaho. And so that's where we're looking at in the local segment. Here in Kendrick, Idaho, there is a brewery that is staying open and sticking it to the governor. And we're going to consider that and more on today's show. Once again, thank you for joining the Midweek Sprint. This is the Midweek Sprint edition of the Life Given Podcast. Okay, here we go. So first up, we have the question is, are shutdowns completely pointless? And this is coming from AFA.net. This is a report that came out, and the writer is reporting on this doctor, Yitzhak Ben Israel of Tel Aviv University, who also happens to be on the research and advisory board for one of the leading pharmaceutical companies in the world, Teva. And so he did this study and concluded that all the lockdowns, all the shutdowns, and this is basically verbatim, all the closing of churches, schools, etc., was nothing more than economy-destroying madness. Ben Israel, the professor, plotted the rates of new coronavirus infections in the US, the UK, Sweden, Italy, Israel, and a number of other countries that most resemble the United States in culture and governing structure. Really, and remember, the central question is, are the shutdowns pointless? Is this just overloading? Is this just going to one side, to the extreme of one side, and not trying to find what is best for everyone involved? And apparently this is his conclusion, that it didn't matter whether a country pursued a very severe, and this is a quote from the article, from the summary, it didn't matter whether a country pursued a very severe incarceration in place policy like Israel, or went about business as usual like Sweden, like we talked about last week. The coronavirus followed precisely the same pattern. In the word of columnist Medina Melvin of Town Hall, coronavirus peaked and subsided in the exact same way, the emphasis of the author. And so to the point of Dr. Ben Israel's research, it showed that all countries experienced identical patterns of disease progression. The infections grew steadily, even exponentially, until they peaked in the 6th week and began to rapidly subside by the 8th week. And so this is very interesting, because the last few weeks, and I don't think that there's that it's weird to see that we're starting to lift the ban as more data is coming out and more people are becoming educated with more facts. I think that just makes sense. I don't know. I think that sure, the lockdown at first might have been a good thing, but now with the more data that we have, the more nuanced our solution should become. It shouldn't be the all-encompassing lockdowns that we have seen up until this point. And so uh, that I think that is really interesting, and yet another article to the point of, hey, let's get back to business as usual. And this is really interesting because Elon Musk had an interview with I believe it was Business Insider, and he's basically not happy. Okay, and this is a direct quote from an interview they had with him, or reported on an interview from him. Frankly, I would call it forcible imprisoning of people in their homes against all of their constitutional rights, in my opinion, he said. It's breaking people's freedoms in ways that are horrible and wrong, and not why they came to America or built this country. Now, if you go and listen or read this interview, be aware there are quite a few expletives, so just kind of a heads up on that. He did point out that Tesla, which is his big company, will weather the storm, but there are many companies that will not. Everything people have worked for their whole life is being destroyed in real time. Now, I just wanted to bring Elon Musk up because more people are starting to realize that this is an overreaction, and more people who not only have things at stake, but people like Elon Musk, who employs thousands of people, really want his people to continue to work. Maybe it's for selfish reasons, but for the reasons elucidated in that article, it sounds like it's for the benefit of his employees. And I think that once again, we need to find more of a nuanced approach to this. And I think people are starting to realize that. Praise the Lord. And I think that is just a wonderful thing that's starting to light bulbs off in people's heads. Okay, so for our second segment here at the national level, so we looked at that article from the Israel professor, and I think that's great to be getting. When people who are outside the nation are saying, "Hey, you can be doing things differently," I think we can look at that and maybe see that as a more unbiased perspective, like maybe someone who may not be as invested in the country. So I think that could be a really good thing to take into account. Let me know your thoughts on that study and on that conclusion that the professor brought. So once again, moving back to this segment, the NCAA recently had a championship and this is coming from the Alliance Defending Freedom, and they shared this video that was taken at the Big Sky Conference Championships in Idaho for the mile run. And that, once again, this could have been a local segment, but this is just one example of many happening around the countries. And it's a video of these runners competing on the track, and it's a women's competition. Women's, air quotes. The female athletes are being forced to compete against the male athlete. When you're watching the video, you can they highlight the person who is the man because it's harder to see, but he definitely is one of the taller, one of the broader people on the track, and he just absolutely lights his competitors up, who all happen to be women. And it only makes sense, like that a man beat a woman in a sport. I mean, you're just going against biology at this point to argue that it's only fair for women to compete against men, or men to compete against women. If you identify as a woman, you should be allowed to play in their sports. And I think we're seeing the faults with that argument, with that line of reasoning. And this is there are a number of things to take from this one instance. In the article itself, they mentioned how Governor Brad Little, here, the governor of Idaho, signed the Fairness in Women's Sports Act into law to ensure that women have a fair playing field in athletics. Events like the Big Sky Championship just go to show how necessary Idaho's law is. So, keep women's sports for the women. It makes sense. But this is the thing, and this is why I'm bringing it up, because really the only thing people are talking about is the coronavirus. And it's really easy when we're focused on one thing, say the coronavirus, or say abortion, arguing over abortion, which are both very important. And I think I've elucidated my position on both issues very clearly in the last couple months. But both are really important issues, but they can be so all encompassing that we let small things slide. And we get to the point that we're looking at someone like Governor Brad Little. I don't really know his faith background, how religious he is, and if I agree with him on all of the what I think are very important things. But we're getting to the point that when someone says a man is a man and a woman is a woman, that we're like, sign me up, I'm voting for that guy. We have gotten to a point in our political landscape that we are literally just saying, hey, great argument that you just made, when literally a 2-year-old should be saying that, not say a 47-year-old running for governor or a 50-year-old running for president. Like, it just surprises me. And this is the reason I want to bring this up, is the fact that it's really easy to lose sight of all the very important things in the one all-encompassing picture. And so just to kind of bring that up and put that on the table, there's so many cultural battles happening right now that I think it's really important that we find the things that we're good at. And this is why we need so many people involved in current events. And that's what is behind the Take Back Current Events this summer. That's the theme for the summer, to take it back, to really take responsibility for discussions in current events. And where I'm going with this is that I would love it if you would share your stories with me and share your feedback on articles you're reading, because we need more conversation and we need more people taking responsibility for what's going on in the culture, because we get to a place like we are in right now where we are saying a man is a woman and gold star for you. Like, every Christian, every conservative think that that's such a wonderful stance, and it is, don't get me wrong. But we're so callous to the point that we think that that is the thing that we are going to vote on, and not voting on what is good for our economy or what is good for our education, for our national education system. And that's the thing that, once again, those should be the basic building blocks of our society. And right now, we are fighting over the foundation of our society. So that brings me to an exciting announcement. For the month of May, the Life Given podcast is being sponsored. It has its very first sponsorship, its official sponsorship, and that sponsorship is Friedel Financial Coaching. Now, if you want to know more about Friedel Financial Coaching, we will have an interview with Ezra. But Ezra Friedel is the founder of this company and this small business, and he is his desire is for you to take back responsibility of your finances and to align it with your worldview, and that is really important to the financial coaching system that he is working in. And everyone has their dreams for what they want the future to look like. However, most of us are held back from achieving those dreams by debt and consequences of bad financial decisions. That is why Friedel Financial Coaching exists, to help you achieve your financial dreams. You can follow Friedel Financial Coaching on Facebook or schedule a time to speak with them at ramseycoach.com/Friedel. Now, I will link to this to both in the show notes. And I think that if you are struggling in a very uncertain time, that this is the time to get counseling, and this is the time to find some peace in your finances and in this very uncertain economy. So locally, this is a very, very sticky situation. I think we're going to be seeing more like it. But there is a brewery in Kendrick, Idaho, that it has opened its doors and is basically defying the Governor Brad Little's stay at home order. And it opened its doors on Friday. And now this, granted, the governor of Idaho did start a 4-step plan to get Idaho's economy back up and running, to get us back to normal. But that it was a very small step forward in the first phase, to the point where we're still kind of um, where we were a couple weeks ago, but he's just lifted the official ban and started moving people out and started allowing people to go to some restaurants. Basically, like the bare minimum that you can do to allow your restaurant to stay afloat. But that is not saving some of these restaurants. So the Hardware Brewing Company in Kendrick, Idaho, this is coming from Moscow Pullman Daily News, and this is quoting, defied the Republican governor's stay healthy order and opened its doors Friday afternoon in downtown Kendrick. And um, there, so there was a police detective that was sent there, Jake Schwake. I could have that wrong. And he had a lengthy discussion with the owners around 4:30. And so a number of political officials were actually there. In fact, Lieutenant Governor of Idaho, Janice McEachin, and then a number of senators and some state reps were there. And they were around as this police officer was talking to the owners, and he just said, hey, like, you are in violation of the governor's orders. But the owners knew it, and Christine Lowen, one of the owners, said her business, which serves craft beer, local wine, and food, has been trying to serve takeout for weeks leading up to this last Friday. And but one of the things that a lot of the businesses around here in Moscow have been able to adapt to doing takeout, to doing basically makeshift drive-through windows. Her place is really built to be a destination place. So they really rely on on customers driving from here, Lewiston, Grangeville, to be able to enjoy the business's atmosphere. And they come for the culture of the restaurant, as well as the music and as well as the food. And they, because of Little's order that he put in place a couple months ago, I think they have only made a 16th of what they would during this time. And I think that that's really, you're putting a lot of businesses in this kind of bind as to whether or not you are going to openly say, Governor, you, just like, I'm going to stick it to you. I'm going to, like, just completely ignore what you have to say, because I need to be able to make a living. And there's this, um, there's the difference between essential and non-essential businesses that have come out recently. And this definition of, like, these businesses are essential, these are non-essential. And the non-essential businesses are really getting the raw end of the deal. And like I said, I think that the lockdowns were an okay measure in the first couple weeks, but honestly, it's coming to the point that I'm all for going to support the Kendrick Brewery for them standing up for their constitutional rights and for being able to supply their employees at some point, to continue to employ them so that they can continue to make a living, the Lomans, the owners of that business. Because at this point, I believe that the cure is far worse than the disease is actually. And we are getting a very, very brutal taste, very brutal medicine that I think is just going to leave our economy, which you could say is our immune system for the country, is getting laid waste. And that's all thanks to our government officials. So good on you, Hardware Brewing Company. Keep up the good work, and hopefully I'll make it out to supporting you very shortly. So that is this week's show. I hope that you really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I think that times are just happening so rapidly. Things are progressing so quickly in these times, in these coronavirus times, if you will. And I think that it's really giving so much to talk about. And that's why I really think that this summer is going to be more important than ever to take back current events. And I want to elucidate just what I mean by that point, what I mean by that theme, and what I would like to come out of it this summer. And this podcast was initially started and still is all about creating conversation. That's why we're going back to these shorter shows, midweek sprints, and that is also why we're trying to get the news site up and running with short posts so that people can read and stay up to date on current events and not have to go to the lengths of trying to find out information without wasting time. So the goal for Take Back Current Events this summer is that I would like, if you have a story of a conversation or even a point that you found interesting in an article that you would like to share, go to the Life Given News Facebook page and post on our wall. Post on what you some thoughts that you had, an article that you thought interesting. Go ahead and share it there. A conversation that you thought you had and that you might have got the raw end of the deal. Go ahead and share it. Obviously, leaving the person that you had the disagreement anonymously. But I really want to create a summer where Christians are taking a stand in Christ's name in current events, to take it back and to show that this belongs to our Lord, just like every other area in our life. Anyway, once again, thank you thanks to Friedel Financial Coaching for the sponsorship for this May. If you're looking for a way to get on top of your finances, go talk to Ezra Friedel. And if you want to find out more about Ezra and his business and his startup, stay tuned. On Saturday, The Finish Line, we will have a very, very great interview with Ezra Friedel. And that will be live May 9th at 10 a.m., I believe. And all of the information that was in this podcast, you will be able to find in the show notes. So once again, I hope you have a great rest of your week. And I hope that you found this very encouraging, and also to just start stirring the pot of current events. So, as always, remember the life that you have been given and the life that you have received includes every area of life. Why should current events be the exception? God bless.